Alrighty, guys. Good morning to all of you. I'm Ryan, Michigan Storm Chasers here, back for a update on our forecast. We have a growing concern for severe weather in the state of Michigan. We're going to break it down here and talk about everything you should know over the next 36 hours. Before I dive in, though, I want to stay pause on the Michigan forecast. I want to go to the nationwide forecast here. We have a moderate risk, a very large moderate risk in effect there from Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, even portions of Indiana, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Mississippi. Around that is an enhanced risk in orange that extends further off into Indiana, even parts of Michigan in that enhanced risk, Wisconsin, Iowa, again back through that Nebraska, Kansas area down through the deep south. So the bottom line today is a very dangerous day, especially in those orange and red areas. Severe weather could happen anywhere within dark green, yellow, orange, or red, but the most concerning is in the orange and red. Now, what we're concerned about here, tornadoes, some of which could be very strong in nature, especially across yellow and red zones there from Illinois to Iowa down to the deep south. That tornado risk extends into Wisconsin, Minnesota, all the way to Michigan, to Ohio, down into Louisiana. So a very large tornado risk today. Damaging winds, though, is your primary concern here as these storms will grow upscale into a line and push outwards. Those lines like to produce a lot of wind and a lot of significant wind, a potential threat today across red, anywhere within that colored zone, but especially in that black, we call it hatch zone there from Southwest Michigan back to Nebraska down to Tennessee and Arkansas. And then also the hail risk today, a little bit lower overall, but still a risk for all hazards possible, especially to our west across portions of Iowa, Illinois, then down into the deep south. So if you guys have friends and family today in the risk, take it very seriously. It is a very high end, or we're going to call it a high ceiling day. There's not many fail modes for today. There's always a fail mode, but just not really seeing much of anything today. I would suggest this threat is not going to materialize. But that is my spiel. Now let's go ahead and dive into the Michigan forecast. Go ahead and close out these tabs here. I got a million of them open. So let's go ahead and talk about Michigan. We have a level 1 and level 2, and also a very small portion, level 3 risk of severe weather here in Michigan. So level 1 risk is that dark green marginal risk. So if you find yourself in light green over here across much of Michigan, the SPC does say that the severe risk is going to be highest off to your west, but the dark green is where that severe risk is. The light green is more so just general thunderstorms, okay? So the concern for severe weather tied to the dark green areas, the yellow areas, and the orange areas for Michigan. So let's go ahead and dive into the threats today. First and foremost, not first, but the first threat today would be the wind. So the wind, again, low risk through the southern part of the UP, Ironwood, Iron Mountain, back down here through Manistee, Grand Rapids, perhaps close to Lansing and Hillsdale here. Now, do take note, they upgraded our risk to a slight risk for a majority of Southwest Michigan, just like our forecast was posted yesterday. The SPC kind of matched what we thought with that little corner of Southwest Michigan in a higher risk there. But do take note that black outline area, that is what we call a hatch zone. And what that means is significant wind gusts that are 75 miles per hour or higher is a possibility tonight. So we could be looking at significant severe weather, as they call it, for damaging winds over 75 miles per hour. That's for Van Buren, Berrien, Cass, and parts of St. Joseph County. So if you happen to live in that southwest corner of Michigan, do pay attention tonight. We'll go over the hour by hour here in just a few minutes, but the SPC did upgrade. We also have a very, 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 very small portion of Berrien County in that 30% enhanced risk. So that risk is knocking on our doorstep. It's not, a large portion of Michigan by any means, but it's still very close to us, that we're going to pay attention to it very, very closely. So that is the main threat, damaging winds tonight. Now, secondary threat is tornadoes. And that's going to be primarily, once again, as we mentioned yesterday, SPC kind of matched our thinking this morning, that very far southwest corner of Michigan from the southern part of Allen County over to the Kalamazoo area, back down through about the Coldwater area, and then point southwestward there. The 2% is in green. That's your lowest risk for tornadoes, but also that red/brown color there for Berrien and Cass County. That's your 5% risk for tornadoes. So that's kind of the more concerning area. The further south and west you go, the higher your risk becomes. And also, last but not least, the hail risk, or this is the wind. Here's the hail risk for the west southwest corner of Michigan, from roughly that Grand Rapids, Manistee area down through about the 69 corridor through Coldwater into Indiana. Not a very high concern for hail today, but the SPC did want to mention that just to cover their bases. So Aside from that, that is your outlook. Let's go ahead and zoom in really closely here to kind of get a better idea of where that slight risk is. So it extends just south of Holland over to Kalamazoo, down through about, we're going to say, the Colon Sherwood area. It's just to the west of Coldwater, but not quite to Coldwater. And that's going to be for the slight risk. Now, the enhanced risk really is only for that very, very far southwest corner of Michigan there in Berrien County. It doesn't really extend. We'll see if they extend it further east or perhaps further north. We do have a couple more outlooks here, one at 12:30 to get through and also one at 4 p.m. And again, the last update for this will be at 9 p.m. So we have 3 more updates to get through. We could have adjustments made, but right now, based off the 9 a.m. outlook, that is how it sits here in Michigan. Let's go ahead and go over the hour by hour and kind of walk you guys through what to expect. So this is the short-term model here with the radar guidance. We're going to look through today. We're going to see some thunderstorms ongoing right now. Actually, in the UP, they were special weather statemented, I believe, for gusty winds and small hail. Not severe, but perhaps a stronger storm up there throughout the morning and afternoon today. That's what you're seeing here on your radar. But as we move through today, it's going to be very pleasant, very warm, 70s, mid-70s for all of us, or pretty much all of us here in the state of Michigan. The attention turns to tonight. So I want to repeat that. Today, across 95% of Michigan, is going to be a very nice day, probably the nicest day of the year for us. 75, sunny, breezy. It's going to feel really dry out there, though. But as we move to the evening hours, the moisture will increase, and so will our concern for severe weather. So the concern for severe weather is going to happen after dark. I'm going to repeat that. The severe weather concerns will begin after dark. Today is not going to have storms for the 95% of us. As we move after midnight, here is midnight right here at this model. We're seeing those storms to our west here moving our way. So we're going to push those up. Here's 2 in the morning. We see that line of storms start to push in to Berrien County area, perhaps some in the UP as well. Again, this is at 2 a.m. on the model here. That is going to be after midnight tonight. It's going to push through very quickly here, bringing us a chance for gusty winds, some heavier rains, some good lightning, and also risk for some hail, perhaps a brief tornado as well for Southwest Michigan. So kind of going hour by hour here. This is going to be 2 a.m. Here is 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6, 7, 8, and by about 9 or so a.m., we're just left with some lingering rain showers here before we clear out. And then it's going to become very breezy on Saturday. So about 2 a.m. to about 8 a.m., around that time frame will be the main concern for severe weather across Michigan. So as we always like to do here at MSC, we like to put our own spin on things, do our own forecasts. Let's go ahead and go over everything that we came up with this morning based on what we see on model guidance. Not just this model, but a lot of models put together. So starting with the overall outlook here, we went ahead and expanded the medium risk like we did yesterday, further north and further east, just to account for the models showing instability kind of growing just a tad bit. That does increase our concern for perhaps a little bit further northward advancement of that severe weather threat, and also a little bit further east as well toward that Battle Creek, toward that Hillsdale, and toward that Muskegon area. So with that being said, we went ahead and matched the SPC with a significant risk there. I don't really think it's a very high risk, so to speak, for significant wind gusts, but it is there because we have a lot of wind shear in the atmosphere. It would not take a lot to get these stronger gusts too mixed to the ground, as we talked about yesterday. So we went ahead and matched the SPC there. So outside that yellow risk, we went ahead and kept the low risk all the way up to about that Grayling and Lexington, Cass City area. That's to account for, hey, we could have a few isolated damaging wind gusts across this part of the state. It's not a very high risk, but it's a risk that we're going to mention just in case these storms like to hold their strength further east and further north. And the same thing applies as a blue risk. It is the lowest risk in blue. Could get an isolated 1 or 2 wind gusts close to 60 miles per hour, but overall concern for severe weather is highest in the green, and especially that yellow zone. So that's your overall outlook. We also put the wind outlook, kind of matches the severe outlook there. The highest concern in the yellow area, and especially that black hatch area. The brown-red color indicates probability percentages. So you're going to match your probability to the panel on the left side there. So yellow is a 15-24%. This is our version. This is the SPC. Just want to make that clear. And then in red, brown is 5 to 14%, and then in the green color, it's a 1 to about 5%, and in gray, it's a less than 1% risk for severe winds. Last but not least, here we have our tornado risk that we come up with here. We're going to go ahead and basically match the SPC with this as well. The our 2% up to 3% really is in green there from Muskegon down through Hastings, Coldwater, perhaps close to Hillsdale area. but we are concerned, especially for that Berrien, Van Buren, and Cass County area there in the brown color. That is our highest concern for tornadoes today. Now, it's not a very high concern at all, but it's a concern we're going to mention nonetheless, just in case. Like I said, there is a lot of wind shear with the system. If we had any more instability, or if we end up with more instability, that raises our concerns significantly with the system, just because it's a very wind shear packed system. We're not going to lack that at all, but the instability will be waning, which is going to keep that threat, or should at least keep that threat suppressed here. Now, moving past tonight, we have some concern for Saturday as well. We're not going to go too deep into Saturday just yet, but we do have a couple things to talk about here. First and foremost, the winds on Saturday will be quite strong in nature, even without showers or storms. Up to 50-mile-per-hour gusts are possible across much of the LP here. Up in the UP, 30 to 40 on the east side of the UP, on the west side, 20 to 30 miles per hour. Not going to be out of the question here. So if we end up on the high end 50-mile-an-hour gust range, that could knock out some power for some of us here in Michigan. So do take note of that. It's going to be a very windy day. It's going to be very warm as well for your Saturday time frame. So with that being said, jumping right back in here to the forecast for the Saturday time frame, I do not have the day 2 outlook pulled up. Let's go ahead and try and get that up real quick for you guys. Won't be too hard. There we go. There is your day 2 outlook here from the SPC. A marginal level 1 risk, basically from Port Huron down through about the Morenci, Adrian area in Lenawee County. So their SPC is thinking it's going to be really tied to the east part of the state. We still think there's a threat a little bit too far, or a little bit back further east. Let's go ahead and dive into the model here very briefly. We're not going to touch on this too deep, but I do want to mention the threat for Saturday afternoon, potential at least threat for Saturday afternoon before I hop out of here. So here's the model going through tonight. There's our line of storms pushing through. Here's Saturday morning here. Here's about noon. All right, we're seeing some scattered storms develop there in the eastern part of Michigan, and the environment within those storms is actually quite interesting according to the models here. So the big thing that we've mentioned the past 3 days, we're going to continue to mention it, is going to be how much instability and moisture can build back in to the eastern part of Michigan before these storms start to fire off. So do take note, the east part of Michigan may have a couple storms Saturday afternoon, some of which could be strong, perhaps severe, potentially, once again, especially if we're going to kind of mark out from the Tri-City area, Bay City, Saginaw, back through about the Coldwater area and points eastward. That's going to be the main concern, our concern at least, for strong to severe storms on Saturday afternoon and evening. Do take note of that. Main time frame for that will be after the noon time frame Saturday. We'll keep close watch on that. We'll go live if we have to go live for Saturday afternoon as well. But generally speaking, we got you guys covered here. We'll be live tonight if anything goes severe, as well as for Indiana. We can probably start our coverage on Indiana first. We'll switch over to Michigan if and when Michigan becomes severe. So with that being said, that is all I have to share with you guys. A little bit longer video today, but it's a lot to talk about here. We have a briefing coming up later today, so stay tuned for that on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Got you guys covered. Enjoy the warm day here, and I'll catch you guys tonight for another briefing and perhaps severe weather coverage here in Michigan.